Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we're back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I'm joined by the $1 million man, the Hall of Famer, Ted DiBiase. Ted, how you doing, man?
Buddy, I'm doing good today. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I think I'm fixing to get better too, because Ted, it's my favorite time of month again here on the podcast, something I know that our listeners always look forward to. You put it out there on your social media, brother, and the fans showed up with literally, no exaggeration, hundreds of questions for another Ask Ted Anything. So incredible response here for us.
Well,
I just want to let our listeners know we will get to as many as we can, but if we miss yours, don't worry. I keep them all, and we're going to roll them over into the next Ask Ted Anything. However, before we get moving here, Ted, I do have to do my usual reminder to our listeners. Get over to youtube.com/@ Everybody's Got a Pod. Go get subscribed. We do giveaways for subscribers. We have clips and highlights from the show. And maybe most exciting, every Monday we drop a YouTube exclusive video. These are stories you will not get on the podcast. You can only find them on YouTube. So if you like what we're doing here, you are going to love our YouTube channel. I can pretty much guarantee it. Again, that's youtube.com/@ Everybody's Got a Pod. Get over there, get subscribed today. All right, Ted, if you're ready, we can start to jump into these questions.
let's go.
All right, let's get it. First up, we've got Kevin Cheadle, who asks, what was your favorite wrestler that you ever managed? Ted, anybody stick out for you?
Gosh, managed. Wow. I managed a few. I managed. Who was in Money Incorporated?
Well, we've got Sid, we've got Tatanka, King Kong Bundy. I want to say Koloff was in there for a little bit, right? Yeah, he was. Who else? Oh gosh, 1-2-3 Kid was in there for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Steve Austin.
Well, yeah, and then of course Steve Austin was there for a while, but obviously and I saw that coming. I mean, Steve, obviously Steve Austin has become a super icon, and I get it. But I didn't manage him very long.
No, it was a pretty
and be honest with you, I didn't think I'd be managing very long because I could see what the guy had, and I just, man, this guy's he's gonna shoot to the top.
Ordinarily managers are kind of reserved for guys who maybe struggle a little bit with promos and need a little extra something.
Yeah,
that was not Steve.
Well, and that's exactly why I said he's not going to be with me long, because he don't need me. Yeah.
So, I mean, among those guys that you've managed, plus, I mean, you were in the NWO. So, I mean, you managed, I think at different times, Hall and Nash and Six, and, eventually you go on to manage the Steiner brothers. So, any one act or performer stick out for you? And why is it Sid?
Gosh, man, that's a whole lot of talent. But in terms of as a manager and probably Steve Austin, but I mean, I tell you who I had fun managing, Bundy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good guy. He's a fun guy. I mean, obviously not the greatest wrestler in the world, but he was a fun guy for sure.
And I don't think he needed to be the greatest wrestler in the world. He was just enormous and imposing, and that's kind of all you need to have a guy like that, plus a good mouthpiece, and you provided that aspect.
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest with you, he did pretty good on his own. He
did have a pretty decent promo. Yeah, he wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, because there's so many guys, it's a plethora of talent, and it's like I don't want to pick one and cut somebody else short.
Next up, kind of a related question with the manager thing. It's David Hill, who asks, who is your favorite manager of all time? Personally, I'm fond of Cornette, but Heenan was great as well. Anybody stick out for you?
You mean just in general, a manager, or somebody who managed me?
It can be either one, but really it's just like a guy that you look at and you're like, okay, that is the perfect manager, the best
Well,
I've ever seen.
Bobby Heenan.
Hmm.
Bobby Heenan could do it all, and you you give him a microphone and he just let him go. He was he was really good in my opinion. And of course, Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was a good manager, and of course, for a while I had Sherry. And I'm gonna tell you something. Sherry was good. It's kind of like if I was going to have somebody as a manager, I would rather have somebody who I had to grab and kind of pull back in instead of you got to do more. With Sherry, with Sherry, it was whoa, 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 whoa. It's kind of like you want to make the special moments special, and if you do too much, you kind of blow it. But I mean, but again, as a manager, she did real well. She worked very well with me, and she got plenty of heat.
You guys had awesome chemistry too. The two of you just kind of like worked really well together. She had like the sparkly kind of outfit on, and you of course were the $1 million man. And I don't know, just like the whole aesthetic really worked. Plus, I always like Sherry because she wasn't afraid to get physical.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and listen, and when she was, before. I mean, oh gosh, I knew Sherry way back, like when I was first starting. I've been thinking. I remember she was in Baton Rouge, and I can't remember. Um, Obviously, when I first met her, and I'm trying to, I can't even remember, if she was seeing one of the guys or whatever. But I just, I recognized in her a toughness. I mean, Sherry. I mean, I'll be honest with you. She wouldn't take crap off anybody. I mean, she'd stand up. She'd stand up right up to one of the guys if they went the wrong way with her. So, and I always admired that. Good for you.
Absolutely. And if I remember right, didn't you induct her into the Hall of Fame, Ted?
Yeah, I think I did.
Pretty
Yep.
awesome. Really awesome. Next up, we've got Jim James 4854 who asks, "I love the match between you and Jimmy Snuka at SummerSlam '89. What was it like to wrestle the Superfly?"
Wow. That's probably one of the only times I ever wrestled Snuka.
Mm.
And yeah, and that again, that's testament to itself. It's kind of like there's a lot of guys, like Jake and I, we wrestled and we're in the ring together a lot over time. And so it wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be very hard for us to have a good match because we know each other so well.
Mm-hmm.
And you when you work with somebody long enough, you know what they do good, and you know where to go with it. But in this case, it was like, wow, I don't,
you got to kind of feel them out like in the ring.
Yeah. So
wow.
Anyway,
so maybe not like perfect chemistry or anything, but like, like, would you say that he was a decent enough performer to get a good match out of?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. No problem there. Not at all.
So I want to ask you about this, and there's kind of no easy way to ask the question. And let me preface it by saying I met Jimmy Snuka a few years before he passed away. Could not have been kinder to me or my brother. Really, really a nice person whenever I met him. However, and I'm sure you know where I'm going here. We hear recently that he may have been involved in some illicit activity that resulted in the death of a young woman back in the '80s. Ted, did you ever hear anything about that over the years? And what did you think whenever you did hear about it?
Well, that story has been around a long time, and I wouldn't know if there's any truth to it. I mean, I'll put it this way: the Jimmy Snuka I knew, I would say I wouldn't. I don't think he'd be capable of doing that. But things happen in people's lives that change them.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be that happened in a time in Jimmy's life where, maybe if it did happen, that it changed him. That the realization of what he'd done. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Maybe changed him as a human being, that kind of
Yeah,
made him have a harder look at himself.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that story's round and round and round, and I guess there's a whole lot of people that know the absolute truth, but I'm not one of them.
That's I mean, perfect answer, Ted. You
Yeah,
know, it's you only know what you know, and
yeah,
that's how you knew Jimmy Snuka as a human being.
yeah, yep.
Next up, we've got Jeremy Anderson. In the 1991 Royal Rumble, when you were shaming Virgil and demanding him to put the belt around your waist, someone threw something that hit you in the back. Was it ice? Do you remember this incident, Ted? That's a pretty specific question. Any chance you remember what hit you in the ring?
Well, I'll put it this way: I don't remember anything hitting me in the ring.
You were locked in.
So if it hit me in the back, and I had that jacket on, I probably, especially if it was ice, I wouldn't even feel it. If it hit me in the back of the head, I might have, but I don't know.
It's an interesting question that I will narrow down a little bit. Ted, what's the worst thing you have ever been hit with, whether in the ring or at ringside or wherever?
Gosh, I mean, I've been hit with people who would take their their drink cup, and leave a good bit of ice in it, and use the cup as projectile. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, I never got hit in the head, thank God. And as big as my head is, that's a miracle. But yeah, I don't know. I've been hit with a lot of stuff, but it was just,
I've heard like some of the grosser stuff I've heard over the years is I've heard both Jake and Eric Bischoff talk about people using their spitter for their tobacco and throwing that at you.
Yeah.
In some instances, maybe somebody even peed into a cup and threw it at a performer, which I don't know about you. I think I'd be climbing into the audience trying to find that guy if that happened to me.
Yeah, well, ditto. Yeah, it would. Yeah. There's just, and and fortunately for me, I don't know how I seem to avoid that, but I did. Not totally, but it's kind of like the other place where it was tough for us. And here's the thing: I remember when I worked for Bill Watts. Wrestling is show business, but he said, especially he says, we don't want babyface or heel. He says, if you go out and you get in a fight in a club, you better win, because if you don't win, you're fired. Yeah,
that's wow. Okay, so you got to go out there.
Just
really
letting everybody know, I never lost a bar fight. I didn't have that many. There was just the couple occasions that I did. It was just somebody who was just genuinely a shithead, and just running off the mouth, and I remember one guy. I mean, I literally, I grabbed his coat. And I physically, it angered me so much that he was such a pest that I just turned around, I grabbed his jacket and I picked him up and I pressed him against the wall. His feet were dangling like this far off the ground. Wow. And I just cut a promo on him and let him go. And when he hit the ground, he got up running. So.
Well, I think a lot of people look at you and then, are like, well, he's an average sized guy, but that's because you were standing by like Hogan and Jake and all these really enormous guys. You were what, like 6'5"?
Yeah, I was 6'4", 260 pounds. That ain't little.
No, that is not a man to piss
But
with.
You're right. Standing next to Andre or Hogan, gosh, yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of people tell me that. Gosh, Ted, I didn't think you were that big.
Not to mention an offensive lineman in college. So yeah, pretty
Yeah.
not a dude to piss with.
Yeah. Well,
Next up, we've got Chris Eddy with one that made me laugh, and this is actually a question that I got. I got a similar topic with Jake recently. Was Ted a baby oil guy? Ted, it's a big thing in pro wrestling. Guys will cover themselves in baby oil to show off the muscles. Did you ever do that?
no, I hated it. I hated it, and it's kind of like Lex Luger and I we're great friends now, and we were never enemies. But Lex, man, he would put on that baby, and I get it. I mean, he put on the baby oil and what's the word?
Accentuates.
Yeah, your physique and everything. But when you get in the ring and you try to grab a hold of that guy, he's like trying to grab a hold of a fish. You can't grab him because he's all greasy. So
probably not a good thing in a business where you've got to lift this guy at times, right? To have this guy being slipping out of your arms. I mean, it could be dangerous for him and you.
Yeah. And then the other reason that I never oiled up is like I never had that great of a body. I mean, I looked like an athlete, but I didn't look like I just came out of Muscle and Fitness magazine.
You were like chiseled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also produced Jeff Jarrett's podcast, and on an episode of his show, Conrad asked him, how would you get the baby oil on yourself? He was like, do you have like a guy backstage that like puts oil on you? And Jeff was like, no, you just like put oil on like a wall and like rub your back on it. And Conrad's like, wait a minute, you're telling me there's like a bunch of oil streaks on walls and buildings? Ted, did you ever witness that behavior?
No.
Maybe it was just a Jeff Jarrett.
No, I mean, I would venture to guess that probably one of the other guys would oil up his back and then just go wash their hands. I mean,
that would be enough for me to not want to get oiled up. I don't need some hairy dude touching me. All right, next up we've got Curtis Polinen, who asks, if given a chance to main event Mania as WWE champion, who would you want your opponent to be? So Ted, you and I have discussed it before, and I know that you certainly never needed the WWF title or any championship really. However, it is kind of like a dream for most guys to main event Mania as champion. If you could pick anybody, who would it be?
Oh gosh, obviously back then, I mean, because one of the obvious choices would be Hogan, because Hogan was the guy, and of course, and I don't think Hogan gets enough credit. I mean, people say, well, he really wasn't a great wrestler. Okay, he wasn't a great wrestler in terms of hammer locks and wrist locks and all this other stuff, and leg sweep and what have you. But what Hogan was very good at was understanding who his character was, and how his character, here's this great big guy, and kind of like Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was great because Andre the Giant could go in the ring and in a very believable way get into a place where the people actually thought he was in danger of losing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like it would take a while for you to get him off his feet. But once you got him to his knees, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all about the way you tell the story.
And man, easily in my mind's eye, I can picture one of those WrestleMania posters with you and Hogan on it. Ted and his money versus Hogan and all of his Hulkamaniacs. Like, I don't know. To me, that I'm honestly kind of surprised, thinking back on it, that you never really had that opportunity with Hogan on, in a huge pay-per-view main event like that.
Well, and I guess in an effort to please a lot of people, and of course, I didn't know this for the longest time, but I think when I came along and I was getting real red hot, it was the reason that WrestleMania 4 went the way it did was to appease Randy Savage. And I'll be honest with you, I get it. Randy was a great worker, and he was a heel. And okay, and so now we're going to this WrestleMania, and I just came along. I started actually physically wrestling for the company, maybe in June or July
of the previous year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so by the time WrestleMania is coming back around, and basically what I did was I was the one that turned Randy babyface,
Yep.
because the last match ended up him and me. And so, as it turns out, I never was WWF World Champion. But here's what I understand about wrestling: it's a story.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's really the world champion. If you're in a movie, it's kind of like, but obviously, but I'd say this though: whoever is the world champion, whoever carries that belt, as a rule, needs to be somebody that has the savvy to get in the ring and wrestle anybody and get a match out of them.
And say what you want about Hogan, he carried that belt for a long time, so clearly he had that savvy to be able to climb into the ring with folks and have a good match.
Yeah, and I had I had several matches with him. I had a lot of matches with him and Savage, and me and Andre, or him and somebody else. Anyway, but that's the bottom line is I never got the world title. Well, and again, to appease me, so to speak, that's why I created my own title. And here's the thing: the $1 Million Championship. I carry that thing now, and there's so many fans. They said that I want to take a picture with the $1 Million belt, and so they do. And so it's kind of like, but the thing that made people hate me back then was I was so arrogant. It was like, I don't need your stinking championship. I'm going to declare myself the champion, and you wrestle me for my belt.
And it's perfect.
And my belt is going to look better, and it's going to be more expensive than any other belt in wrestling history.
It's just good storytelling.
And it's storytelling. And I mean, what it got me was a whole lot of heat. What an arrogant la 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 la. Who's he think he is? Type of, and that was the whole point, was to give me heat. And if you're a heel, that's what you want to keep your heat.
Now,
you want to be able to go in the ring, have a match with a guy like Hulk Hogan, and even if you get beat, you keep your heat.
Yep.
And it's like, and that was the thing for me. It was like, no matter how many times I wrestled whoever, people were just going to continue to hate me. And that was the whole idea.
And you stayed one of the top heels in the company for 9 years, so proof was in the pudding. Did I hear you correctly? Do you bring the $1 Million Championship? You have your own copy of the $1 Million Championship?
Yeah, I have a replica, and I take it to me to all these autograph signings, and man, they just want to take a picture with the championship belt.
Well, there you have it, folks. In case I didn't know that, so I'm guessing a lot of our listeners didn't know that. Go ahead
and a little history on now. That's the belt I have is not the original belt. I have a replica.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the WWE. I mean, they sent me 2 replicas. So I had two replicas. And so if I wear one out, I still got another one. And if I need to get another one, I can call them and get another one.
That's awesome.
But the real belt in 1988, when they had that belt made, its estimated value was $40,000. And they had it insured. And I had to, like, when we would go overseas, when we'd go to England and stuff, I had to take a declaration page, like sort of for going through customs. like what's the value of this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was, 40 grand. Today, I have no idea what it would be worth.
6 figures, certainly.
The belt it's in the safe in Stanford.
Maybe call Vince and see if you can get your hands on that one. Say, I'll send you this replica. Could you send me the actual belt?
Yeah, what's funny is that when I had first left the WWE, I got a call from Linda McMahon. Well, first I got a call from somebody in the office. They said, Ted, we need for you to send us the $1 million belt. I says, you have the $1 million belt. It's right there. And I said, the last time I was there, I can't remember where I was. I departed from. I said, it was right there. And so then a couple of days go by, and I get a personal call from Linda McMahon saying, Ted, we really need for you to send us a belt. And I said, Linda, I said, after all you guys have done for me, do you think that I would really try to steal the belt? I promise you, it is there somewhere. So a couple more days go by, and it wasn't Linda who called, but somebody else called and said, Ted, we just wanted you to know we found the belt. I said, great. Where was it? And the laugh from the other side, and they said, in the safe. Did anybody think of maybe looking there first?
That might be the spot. Man, it's it would be cool if you did wind up having that belt in your possession, but cool if they sent you replicas that now you get to go out there with the fans and have these cool photo ops. So guys, if Ted is going to be in a city near you, go out of your way. That's a really cool photo op to get to have with the $1 Million Man himself. Next up, we've got Billy Misovich, who asks, this is a fun question. Would you have ever participated in a barbed wire match like your mentor, Terry Funk?
No. No, I never participated in a barbed wire match, and I had no desire to. I mean, I loved Terry Funk. I loved him like a brother. He was a mentor to me. He was probably the first guy that I would go to if I ever had a question about anything that related to wrestling. Terry and his brother, Dory Funk Jr., again, two guys, they were both NWA world champions. But Dory Jr., he had his own style. But the difference, I would say, is this. Terry could wrestle like his brother, or Terry could be the wildest, craziest orangutan you've ever seen. And I think that's why he and Mick Foley got to be such good friends. It's because, Mick does all that crazy stuff.
Yep.
But no, I mean, Terry could do it all.
Cut from the same cloth for sure, those two. Now, Ted, you and I have said before on the show here, everybody's got a price. So what kind of a price would it take for you to do a barbed wire match? Or is it just, nope, we'll never do it? There's got to be some figure that would get you to say, well, okay.
It's like, never say never. I mean, I've got to live up to my own words. Everybody's got a stinking price.
I mean, I'm picturing somebody.
If you want to give me, $250,000, I'll do it.
I'll tell you what, that is a hell of a
actually, I think I'd do it for less than that.
It's funny because my initial thought was like, yeah, I mean, if somebody offers me $1 million, yeah, I'd do it. And then I was like, what if somebody offered me 10 grand for a 15-minute match? It's like, probably. I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
It would be terrible, and hopefully they have some antiseptic backstage. But yeah. Next up, we've got Andy Etzweiler, who asks, even though your entrance music is legendary, if you were able to pick your own entrance song from any recorded song in history, what would you change it to?
Wow.
Any recorded song.
Hmm.
And by the way, it doesn't have to go with the $1 Million Man character. Just like a song that would be cool for you to walk out to.
Hmm. You know, I've never really thought about that.
That's an interesting one. And Ted, nowadays, Tony Khan, who runs AEW, he's licensing a lot of music for his people to come out to. So like a lot of really popular songs have now become entrance themes for talents. So it's kind of becoming a thing in wrestling nowadays. So I'm guessing that's where this question came from. But
Wow.
yeah, like what kind of music do you like? I know you like Elvis. That's probably not great
I
entrance
don't,
music.
I do. I love Elvis Presley, but I don't think that I don't think there's anything that's Elvis that would, that would fit like a, in entrance music. It would, so it would have to be something more heavy metal.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's a, what? Let's save that one.
Yeah,
Let's
that's a hell of a
save
question.
that one because I really want to think about that because I've never thought of it that way. It's like I knew that Jimmy Hart, he's the guy that created all the entrance music for the guys, including me. And originally the music that Hulk Hogan ended up coming out to.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I was told that Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham as a tag team had that music.
The U.S. Express. That makes sense.
Yeah. I am a real American. Yeah.
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 How about that?
They originally had it, but I don't know how Hulk stole it from them.
I would say it worked out pretty well for Hulk. And actually, Jake had that really iconic entrance theme. And before Jake showed up, or at least before he got the theme, there's a workout video of Hogan, and Jake's theme was playing in the background during it before it became Jake's theme. So Hogan's kind of got his fingerprint. I'm surprised he didn't do something with the $1 Million Man theme at some point. Well, look, it worked out pretty perfectly for you with that entrance music. I mean, you want to talk about iconic, people reference it all the time.
Yeah. Money, 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 money.
How'd you feel doing it?
I sang it.
I was going to say, when you were doing the voiceover,
I didn't sing. I mouthed it, of course.
You were talking and realized
everybody's going to pay. $1 Million Man always gets his way.
You still got it, brother. Now, when you were doing that, as you're like in the studio, I assume in front of a microphone saying these lines, are you like, oh boy, this song is going to be weird, but or like right out of the gate where you're like, okay, I get it, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You felt like it was going to be great right out of the gate.
Well, I didn't know. I needed to like see it in action, see how the fans responded to it. So anyway.
Well, gotta give it up. It worked out very well.
Yeah.
Roger Redding is up next. Why hasn't Virgil been inducted into the Hall of Fame? Ted, let me alter that one a little bit. Does Virgil belong in the WWE Hall of Fame?
No, because Virgil, he was a valet, period. He never wrestled. The only wrestling match he may have had was with me. And that was, it was short-lived because honestly, he's a nice enough guy. He's just not that wrestling savvy. There's no other way to put it. The reason that they chose him to be my valet was basically because of his look, because he had that, he'd stand there. And the one thing I give to his credit and is the way he maintained that chiseled body, for years. If Virgil could have had if he had any real wrestling ability, in terms of understanding of what we do, I could have had, it's like for as long as he was like the valet and taking my crap, and then, we finally did that thing where he bowed up and he, but and again, we could have, if he'd have had any real wrestling talent, I mean, we could have had a really good program.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't have it.
All right, Ted, we'll do a few more and I'll let you go. Ryan Taylor is up next. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling heels? So top 4, and look, let's narrow this down a little bit. It doesn't have to be like who you think are the greatest of all time. Just like you personally, who do you like as pro wrestling heels?
Pro wrestling heels, man. Well, I would probably put my father at the top of that list.
Was your dad a heel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's perfect.
Iron Mike DiBiase. And because he was my dad and because I learned just about everything I know by watching him, and the way he carried himself as a heel. But I mean, that's a son, putting over his dad.
Sure.
For sure. Again, Terry Funk.
Gotta be.
I mean, Terry Funk. I mean, and again, Terry could go either way. He could be the greatest baby face in the world. I mean, here's what you understand. It's like the NWA world champion. Now, the Funks are both from Texas, Amarillo, Texas. So when they were world champions, the only place that they were baby faces was in Texas, in the Amarillo territory where everybody knew them and knew they were from there. But in all the other territories, the world champion is a heel. And the reason is the world champion's a heel because when he comes to those different territories, they are going to put him against their top baby face.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the biggest draw. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you got a world champion coming in and he's a baby face and you put him on against your biggest heel, well, you're just going to want to see him win. But when you bring a guy in and he's the world champion and he's a heel and he's going to go up against your number one baby face, that's what you're really pulling for because you want to see your number one guy beat the other guy. I mean, it's just the way it worked. And so the only place that you were ever a baby face as a world champion would be in your home territory. And for the Funks, that would have been Amarillo.
And Terry as a traveling heel champion, I mean, iconic stuff. I gotta imagine Harley Race is on your Mount Rushmore as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Just incredible heel.
Incredible heel. And same thing there. I mean, his home territory was Kansas City. He and Bob Geigel and I think Pat O'Connor were partners in what was then called the Kansas City territory back in the territory era. And again, the only place that Harley was a babyface was in Kansas City. It worked the same way there. But yeah, definitely on top of my list as one of the best.
One more for that Mount Rushmore to be completed.
Man. There's so many guys. I mean, it's kind of like I think about like my tag team partner in Japan, Stan Hansen.
Oh, great one.
Stan was, he was and Bruiser Brody.
Yep.
Here's another guy who was a tremendous heel.
All right, so now we have to make 5 spots on the Mount Rushmore so we can add Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. I think that
works. Okay. Colonel Buck Robley.
That is not one I was expecting. Buck Robley.
Buck Robley was one heck of a heel. I mean, he could, again, he's another guy who could do it all. But I don't know. maybe that's pushing it a little bit.
No,
But
hey, look, this is your Mount Rushmore of heels.
yeah,
So if Buck Robley's on there, he's on
a
there.
lot of the guys, like the guys we've mentioned, are all guys that had influence in the development of me as a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Harley Race, you know, the Funks, you know, those guys. You know, those guys were the biggest influence on me, and of course my dad. So
Great ones. No, I think that's perfect for your personal Mount Rushmore. I think it's different for everybody.
yeah,
Ted, let's do one more and I will let you go. We've got Jay Lee 1980 who asks, and actually you and I had talked about this a little bit before we hit record. What happened to your tuxedos? Those need to be part of A&E Lost Treasures and put on display.
well, you know, I think I have one left, and the one I have that's left is it's white with gold trim, and I think I actually only wore it a couple of times, and I think that was in I wore it in Europe. I think is when I went over there when we wrestled in Wembley Stadium. I think is where I debuted that thing. Now I had a black and gold one. I had a silver one with trim. I had a green one, and I had the black one, and I had that and the white one. And I have one left. The others, quite frankly, I gave to charities to raise money for special causes. So that's where they went.
That's a good reason not to have them anymore. And
and you know, I thought about having one. You know, I don't know if that lady that my wife found a seamstress locally that would make those for me, and I don't know if she's still around. And I thought about having another one made, but if she had it made, I couldn't get in it. Yeah, because I'm a little bigger than I am. Yeah.
You could ever make it a little bigger. Let me tell you, that could be really good stuff for your autograph signings. You're there in one of those old tuxedos.
Oh gosh.
Well, look, I think that white one that you still have in your possession, if I remember right, I think you wore that at WrestleMania 9 as well. So pretty iconic tuxedo.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Yep.
That was out in was that in Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an outdoor show.
So that thing is never recovered. It's still covered in sweat. Vegas outdoors and like whatever it is, April. I'm sure you were roasting in that thing.
Wow.
Well, hey, that's awesome that you still got it in your possession, man. It's that kind of thing. I mean, a true piece of wrestling history you've got there. That's awesome. And I think that what we're doing here is awesome, Ted. Another awesome edition of Ask Ted Anything is in the books here. Next week, you heard it, folks. We're returning to October 1996. This will be our final episode for the month of October. So we got to close it out in style. We're looking back to your time in WCW again to continue that story. And if you folks out there have a question, please go ahead and fire it over to us on social media. We're at Ted DiBiase Pod on all social media platforms. Also, before we go, I wanted to remind you all that if you'd like to get this podcast earlier with no commercials and get access to a ton of sports, entertainment, and other shows, go over to premierstreamingnetwork.com. Sign up for Premier Plus. RVD has a podcast there with my brother. Efren does the game event. There's so much stuff over there. If you're a wrestling fan, you are going to love it. Again, it's premierstreamingnetwork.com. Sign up for Premier Plus today. If you're enjoying our show and you're listening on your podcast app, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review because that helps us. And guys, we'll be back next week. But in the meantime, we would love to have you follow us and interact with us on social media. You can follow Ted at MDM Ted DiBiase on his social. Follow me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X, and follow Premier Streaming Network at Watch on Premier on X and at Premier Streaming Network on Instagram and Facebook. Ted, I love doing these Ask Ted Anythings. You just never know what we're gonna be asked, whether it's about your tuxedos or whether or not you put on baby oil. We hear all of it.
Well, no, nobody's ever asked me to put baby oil in them.
Well, I'm glad we know the answer now.
You know, what I would have done? I'd have said, see Virgil.
It's his role. He's your servant or whatever. It's perfect.
All right.
Man, hilarious. And this was a real blast, man. Thank you so much.
You bet, man. And as I go, I must remind everybody that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
See you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.